How we doing? How we doing? This is Destination Denver, Colorado, and today one of the most common questions I am asked, Jimmy, we don't want to live in Denver, but we want to be in a nice suburb, a nice town near the city that's walkable and has a really charming downtown. What do you got for us? Well, we're here to talk about some of my favorites, and we're starting right now. All right, this is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Everson. Listen, if you're interested in learning all the ins and outs, pros and cons to moving to or around the Denver metro area and the Front Range of Colorado, this is the channel for you. So you're going to want to make sure you click on that subscribe button as I drop new videos for you each and every week. And as much as I try to be informative here on camera, I'm also a licensed mortgage broker covering the entire state of Colorado and team with some of the state's most talented realtors. And we're helping people move here each and every day. So the number and email you see on your screen, know that I'm always the person, answer your phone calls, answer your texts, answer your emails there, winning if you need me. Now that we're done with that fun-filled stuff, let's get to what we're here for, and that is what are the best walkable towns near Denver with really charming downtown areas. All right, so if you've watched any of my videos, you have probably figured out by now that I'm a huge fan of these walkable downtown areas in the suburbs, the type of places where you're a relatively short drive down to Denver if you want to get down for a sporting event or a concert or maybe dinner at a restaurant downtown, but you're far enough away to where you feel like you're in your own town. And this walkable area is something you can sink your teeth into. There's restaurants and there's cafes and there's just life occurring there. So this is also not necessarily a ranking of here's the number 1 down to number 8. This is just a running list of some of my favorites, some of the favorites of people who I've helped move here, and obviously, residents of those local areas that just rave about the towns they live in. So I begin with one of my absolute favorites, and that is Golden, Colorado, located west of Denver. And depending on what part of Golden you live in, you could say you're 20 to 25 minutes from downtown Denver, upwards of 35 minutes to 40 minutes, as you stretch in farther into the canyons of Golden. But when we talk about downtown Golden, you're gonna talk about just the picturesque vision of a mountain town without having to drive all the way into the mountains. With the Welcome to Golden sign over top of the road, the mountains in the background, dare I say majestic, and just a very cool energy to downtown Golden. You've got a lot of history there, obviously, an old mining town. It was at one point Colorado's state capital until Denver took over. And so you'll see a lot of that history there. Coors Brewery, the largest single brewery in the entire world, just a huge facility that stretches farther and farther into this canyon along some railroad tracks and Clear Creek Canyon. Obviously has a huge presence there, and you'll see that. But a lot to do along Washington Avenue. Some great restaurants, including Woody's Pizza, don't forget that. You got Golden Mills, a great place to grab a bite, some different food carts there, as well as kind of one of those places where you grab a card and load up your wine or your beer or whatever you're drinking. Great outdoor space. But there's just a lot. Breweries, restaurants, and within Golden, you have the Colorado School of Mines, one of the most prestigious engineering, among other degrees, engineering schools in the country. There, a lot of businesses, a lot of cool shops and expos, just a really great place to be. They also have a very cool Golden Retriever Day there in Golden, one of the best days to go there. And so you've got this great environment there in Golden and a lot to do in and around it. You've got Lookout Mountain very close by, great views from there. Buffalo Bill's grave if you're into that and into some hikes. And one of my favorite things to do, and a lot of people's favorite thing for that matter, is that Clear Creek runs right into the heart of Golden. So you have Clear Creek Canyon, great thing to do, get a group of friends, grab some inner tubes. One of you drives up the hill, takes everybody up with the inner tubes, ride it down into Golden. And there's a lot of parks along the way for you to offload. Just a great way to spend a nice sunny day here in Colorado. Now, Golden, of all the places we're going to cover, Golden is near the top, not at the top, but near the top as far as how expensive it can be. So your median home price there for purchase is going to be right around $1 million. Again, that's not to say that you have to spend $1 million on a house. It's just going to be on the higher end, typically. And as far as rents, as of the making of this video, again, you're looking at just under $2,300 as that median rent price. So again, the pro of just a really cool community close to Denver. Cons, it can be a bit pricey. Next up is Littleton, Colorado, located about 15 to 20 minutes south of Denver. Downtown Littleton is roughly 12 minutes from the heart of Denver. And Main Street, as many of these downtown main streets are called, is just this historic brick building strip of road. You've got a light rail right at the top of it, so very convenient for folks who want to use the light rail for part of their transportation. Filled again with restaurants and coffee shops. A lot of really cool places to explore. La Palenque, View House, Melting Pot among some of the favorites there. They've also got a really cool chocolate shop with both coffee, wine, and chocolate. Can't get much better than that. And just down the road from downtown Littleton is an area called Aspen Grove. You've got Breckenridge Brewery, you've got Angelo's Taverna, you've got a bunch of shops, including the Tattered Cover Bookstore, one of my absolute favorites. So just a lot to do in and around that area. Median home prices, definitely a tick down from Golden. They sat at about $817,500 as of the making of this video. Rent just a shade under $2,400. Next up, and again, if people have watched this channel before, they're like, I saw that one coming, and that's Oldtown Arvada. So Littleton south of Denver, Oldtown Arvada northwest of Denver, about the same distance, about 15-20 minutes from Denver. And Oldtown Arvada is somewhat on a smaller scale, much smaller scale, I should say, similar to another downtown area we'll talk about later in this video, that being Boulder, but that it has blocked off foot traffic only, walking traffic only streets there in Oldtown Arvada. They made some of those changes during the pandemic as they started to bring more restaurants out to the street, but it really adds an element to downtown Arvada that I enjoy. So some of the cooler places to visit, Lady Nomad, a great Mexican restaurant there. You've got the Schoolhouse, which is one of my absolute favorite bars. Used to be an old schoolhouse right there. Can't forget about Tap and Dough Pizza. Just a lot of places. I know I don't necessarily need to name restaurants. You can Google that. But when you get out there, you just feel like a great atmosphere. There is just fantastic energy in Arvada. They do a lot in the community. I'm making this video just days after St. Patrick's Day. They've got a great parade there. They've got different days where they get people out for a lot of art, a lot of music, and they have also a great farmers market. I should mention that. Similar to Littleton in the fact that a light rail station runs right along the heart of Oldtown Arvada, so very convenient there. Price points. Arvada will be a bit more reasonable. Median home price as of the making of this video set at $741,000, $741,600, I believe, there in Arvada. And rent prices around $2,350. And I should mention, my apologies, this is based on 2-bedroom apartments. Next up on the list, moving a little farther away from Denver, about 25 miles from downtown Denver, is Louisville. Yes, in Colorado, we call that town Louisville. Sorry, my fans from Kentucky or friends from Kentucky. I'm gonna call you fans, I'm not that pompous. But downtown Louisville, shocking, Main Street. Again, just one of these charming, historic places. I have to admit, used to be an amazing Italian restaurant called the Blue Parrot that closed a few years ago. I have to mention it because it was just a family place. We loved going there, delicious. But it has been replaced with some amazing businesses there in Louisville. And there's where you're gonna get these components. A ton of walkability with coffee shops, art galleries. There are a lot of farm-to-table restaurants there in Louisville. That's a big component for them. You have Moxie Bread Co. You have Waterloo, which is a rooftop bar. They usually have a lot of live music and great food there, so Waterloo is a great place to explore. And again, you talk about these towns, the farmers markets. So Louisville, during the summer, you got a great farmers market, and there's a ton of farms near there. So you want to talk about some quality food, some quality vegetables and fruits coming your way. Louisville Farmers Market has it. Now, because of a lot of Louisville's residents are folks that wanted to be close to Boulder but didn't necessarily want the Boulder price tag, Louisville can be, again, a bit pricey. Not quite as pricey as Boulder or Golden, but higher. So a median home price sits at $862,000. Again, as of the making of this video, I won't repeat that again. Hopefully you figured that out, but $862,000. And as far as rents, right around $2,400 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. And I will say, Louisville, we talk about just the things to do outdoors. There's a lot of great hikes nearby. You might want to check out Winnetka State Park. Just some great amenities there. And again, you have the lifestyle of a lot of people who just enjoy nature, really enjoy getting outside, and you'll see that energy when you get to downtown Louisville. Rolling right along, and obviously we have to cover it. You can't talk about downtown areas anywhere near the Denver metro area without touching one of the most popular in the entire state of Colorado, and that is Boulder and Pearl Street. So downtown Boulder, first, as you will probably figure out yourself, Boulder is just one of the most pretty towns to look at, especially as you're driving up Route 36. If you're heading from Denver, Broomfield, any of those areas, you're coming up Route 36, you come up over this hill, you peek down into Boulder, sits in this valley, you've got the Flatirons behind it, you've got a lot of Greenland just wrapped around the outskirts, some open space that will never be filled, at least not if the Boulder County's City Council has anything to do with it. But Pearl Street itself, anywhere near Denver, anywhere on the Front Range, I do not believe there is a more walkable stretch of road than Pearl Street. I mean, probably because of the fact that it's blocked off to all driving traffic. I mean, you have cars that cut across Pearl Street here and there, but you just have multiple blocks of restaurants and shops and just different things to do that are all just designated for walking traffic. And then among that, you have kind of that art festival, artsy feeling, a little hippie-ish, and I was raised by a hippie, so I think I could say that, where there's just, I keep mentioning energy, and Pearl Street has it. Some of the street performers, the guy that balances himself on 17 chairs in the air and gets your kids involved throwing knives at him and weird stuff, but there's just everything to do there. And there's the variety. You can find some of the best dive bars and dive restaurants ever. You can find some really nice places to eat. You can find bookstores where things are just torn apart and historic, and then the fresh and clean. There's something for everybody along Pearl Street. And as much, I mentioned Arvada earlier as a comparison. Arvada, great. I love Oldtown Arvada. Oldtown Arvada is here where, downtown Pearl Street, Boulder is here. It's just a different world. Couple cool places to check out, among others. I mean, the locals will certainly give you some tips, but the Sink, that's a Boulder institution for burgers, graffiti all over the wall. Avanti, which is a chain. Avanti has multiple locations now, but really great views, some good food where you can get moving afterwards. And then Rayback Collective, which is an outdoor beer garden. Really cool space there. Now, I mentioned the housing market and price points. The median price in Boulder, as of the making of this video, sat at $995,000, which is actually, I'm sure you've noticed, slightly less than Golden, but I need to be clear that includes condos, townhomes. This is just overall price points. I assure you, especially if you are looking for single family homes, if you're looking for detached houses, odds are Boulder is going to be the highest price point of any of the towns we're covering in this video. Rents in Boulder sitting just under $2,900 for that 2-bedroom. So again, one of the pricier points, but you are paying for a lifestyle there. Boulder, just kind of one of those places that is highly desirable, which is again why you're seeing that some of the towns we're going to cover are nearby, near enough to where Boulder can still be part of your life if you want to conveniently get up there routinely. Now, taking you all the way, we're northwest of Denver, about 45 minutes. Now we're gonna come southeast, roughly 30 to 35 minutes of Denver. That's Parker, Colorado. And I've consistently said, I am a west side of town kid. I love being close to the mountains. I love the views we have here. If I was going to move east of I-25, in Denver at some point, I think Parker would probably be number one on my list. And that's not to say that there aren't other great places east of I-25, but Parker's got a lot going on. Again, roughly about 25 miles from downtown Denver. Shocking, their downtown area, Main Street, is filled with, again, a lot of history and a lot of character, an old museum, old town hall. Downtown Parker, not necessarily massive. I mean, it's got decent size to it. It's not quite as big as I would say Littleton's, but comparative. About, a handful of blocks, several restaurants, some great shops. One thing that I really like about Parker that I notice whenever I go there is that there's music. There always seems to be, there's someone playing in O'Brien Park, which is a great park right there in the heart of downtown Parker. They'll do a lot of community events there, or it's in a nearby, restaurant where they've got the garage door style, drawers up, and you hear that live music. There's just, I keep coming back to it, a great energy. It's part of the reason that I love these downtown areas is that small town feel, and you really get it in Parker. Nearby is the Pace Center, which is the Parker Arts Center. There's a lot going on there. Again, I mentioned O'Brien Park. And one thing about Parker, not to say that these other communities don't, Parker, to me, is the quintessential community that really thinks about how can we get more people out. So they do a ton of events. They've got Parker Days, they've got a cider festival, they've got events around Halloween, a lot of art, as I mentioned earlier. Just a lot of reasons to get out and about in the community. It always seems like they're doing something there. Again, there are other communities that do it. I just feel like Parker has always been at the forefront of that, and you hear a lot about it. Median home price there in Parker sits at $755,000. Median rent right at about $2,300 per month. And a couple more for you. So now, when we're talking about small towns with a mountain town feel, we go to Evergreen, Colorado, which is far enough into the mountains to where I think you could say you're living in the mountains. But still, again, close enough to Denver where you can get down, barring traffic, in roughly 30 to 35 minutes. It's not that far of a drive. Downtown Evergreen. Smaller, certainly smaller. You're talking about just kind of one small stretch of road, one car in, one car out type of thing. Got Little Bear Saloon right there to the right. I don't want to call it a dive bar. I think people there will be I don't think they'll be angry at me, but it's just a great, old school mountain town bar where, bands come in and play, and there's stuff all over the walls, and you're drinking your draft Coors Light. It's just a fantastic environment. It's one of the places, I always judge areas by how much the people that come and visit me or the people I show around, I'm not a realtor, I'm a lender, so I don't necessarily show them around as houses, but when I take people around Colorado, the places where they always want to go back to, and Little Bear Saloon and Evergreen are one of those places. And so after you get through this, again, little Main Street area, where you're gonna park, and there's a lot, of walking around there, not just for the shops and the stores and the restaurants. There's a Papa Dough there if you want some pizza, but for the nature, just the feeling of Evergreen, Colorado. And then as you come to the end of Main Street, you have Evergreen Lake, which is, I think I've used the term majestic a few times here, so I have to, pause and think of another word. It's gorgeous. I don't have one that really does it justice. Evergreen Lake, just sitting like right in this valley. You have people out in the summertime on their paddle boards and kayaks. There's people taking loops around the lake itself. During the winter, there's ice skating. There's a great center there for different events. People will get married there, all sorts of stuff. You've got houses going up these, the cliffs, I shouldn't say cliffs, up the mountains to each side. Can't imagine some of the views they have. And then right on that other side, you've got some really cool shops in a strip there, another coffee shop, a restaurant that my wife and I enjoy going. So of all the towns, listen, they all have a great visual to them. They're all beautiful. I don't know if any of them beat Evergreen. Just that whole thing. The fact that you were in the mountains, the fact that you've got the lake right there, just that whole environment. I mean, there's others that might compete, but Evergreen probably takes the cake when it comes to, if you're the outdoor type and you really just want to take in nature, Evergreen and downtown Evergreen is going to be tough to beat. Median home price in Evergreen sits at $9,500. Median rent sits right around $2,500. Now, I will say, one thing I should add is that of all the communities we talk about in this video, Evergreen is going to be, to some extent, slightly different than any of the others. Maybe Boulder and Golden to some extent, depending on where you are. But Evergreen, I mean, it is mountain living. You are in the mountains. So that is one town where you are more likely than some of the others to deal with things like, are they on well water? Is there a septic tank? What is your internet connection going to look like? You know, where are you as far as access to the main town? So just a different style of living where some of the amenities or some of the things you may take for granted in your normal suburb town might be a bit different. So worth exploring if Evergreen is a town that catches your attention. And last up, like I mentioned, we're going to bounce all over the place. We go back closer to Boulder, getting northwest again of Denver. We look at Lafayette. So Boulder, Louisville, Lafayette, kind of all in this same region. So you have very quick, again, a lot of overflow from Boulder, if you will, in Lafayette, and some folks that kind of want a Boulder-ish environment as opposed to a Denver-ish environment. So they move up that way. But Lafayette, just a great town, certainly growing, in my opinion, in a healthy manner. And they're downtown public road. So again, that main strip filled with coffee shops, restaurants, you know, that amused vibe. You've got a great plant store, flower store. I've bought my wife flowers there a handful of times. So just a really cool environment there. You've got a Post Chicken and Beer. They're famous for some fried chicken in their house brew beer. You've got Odd 13 Brewing. That's a local favorite for brews there in Lafayette. And then you've got the Community Supper Club. Again, I mentioned kind of same thing in Louisville. A lot of that farm to table environment. The Community Supper Club certainly carries that tradition there in Lafayette. Now Lafayette, again, just according to most numbers, is going to be a bit more reasonable. Median home price sitting at $720,000. Of course, as I say that, some of you are probably listening and going, that's reasonable, $720,000. I mean, again, in comparison to some of the others, median rent sat at $2,275. Again, I think when you're talking about Lafayette, Louisville, Boulder, the nice thing is that if you're close to any of them, you're close to all of them. You have pretty quick access to them. You're also very close to areas like Superior. You can get over to areas like Longmont and Erie that also have their own very cool downtown areas, but I digress. We're not covering those today, but overall, a really cool area. At the end of the day, you know, there's a lot of people that are looking to move here that, again, they don't want to be in downtown Denver. They don't want to be close to Denver. They may want access to the city for specific things, but they want their walkability where they live, not where, you know, they have to drive to get it. These are some examples of some amazing places to explore. Certainly others, and there's going to be some people, I'd love the feedback from folks who said, hey, what about this place? What about that? I am all ears for it because, as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm a huge fan of them and I want to continue to explore. This is Destination Denver, Colorado. I am your host, Jimmy Everts. That was the best walkable towns near Denver with charming downtowns. Until I see you next time, peace.